Welcome to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of our flagship stations, 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV, on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99, where you can also find us in the Birmingham-Bloomfield area on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, and on City Cable 15 of Southfield. Join us live on Channel 10 in Waterford every day on the Media Network of Waterford, and live to tape on Channel 10 in Orion Township and Lake Orion on Orion Neighborhood Television, or ONTV. You can also find us on the radio in the Birmingham, Bloomfield, and Troy areas on the Biff Radio Network, 88.1, the Biff, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District. Find us online on our Facebook pages at Civic Center TV 15 and at Lakes FM, on our website at civiccentertv.com, and beginning at 11 o'clock for the Michigan Megacast on My Michigan TV or MyMy at mymytv.com, mymytv.com, where you can also learn more about downloading both their free MyMyTV apps for your smartphones and your smart TVs. All that information is on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you can also find all of our programs on demand, as well as each individual interview as well. Then let's head over to our coronavirus page, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, where we have links to the most up-to-date information on COVID-19 from reliable expert resources at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services here in Lansing, and Oakland County Health Division here in Pontiac, so that you can stay up to date on everything you need to know about the spread of COVID-19, precautionary tactics such as masking, social distancing, vaccination, and booster shots as well. Also on a coronavirus page at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, we feature articles from many journalistic outlets throughout the state of Michigan in order to keep you updated on COVID-19 and other stories making headlines across the Great Lakes state when WordPress permits us to do so. Again, that's wordpress.com/support for any complaints, as we will get these articles up at some point this morning, sometime this afternoon. Eventually, last time it took us till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon to finally get through. Again, that's wordpress.com/support or at WordPress on any social media for complaints about these articles not being up there. That being said, we'll go through them anyway, and we'll post them when we can today on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Our top story today is from USA Today via the Detroit Free Press. Airlines are ditching face mask rules for the first time in 2 years. Here's what travelers need to know. It looks like the mask mandate on airplanes won't be in place an extra 2 weeks after all. United, American, Southwest, Delta, Alaska, and other airlines late on Monday said they were dropping their face mask requirements effective immediately, given a federal judge's rule in Florida that the White House response to that ruling. The mask mandate announced in January of 2021 had been set to expire on Monday, but the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention last week announced that it would keep it in place until May 3rd to allow more time to study the BA.2 Omicron subvariant of the coronavirus that is responsible for the majority of cases in the country at this time. It was the mask mandate's 5th extension, despite repeated requests from airlines and other travel industry officials to ease restrictions. The court ruling moved up the timeline, barring any appeals, so passengers boarding flights late Monday are doing so without masks for the first time in nearly 2 years. Airlines began requiring masks before the government did, with JetBlue Airlines the first carrier to announce that move. The airline's policy was quickly matched by other carriers. Fast forward 2 years, and airlines, which have been pushing for an end to the mandate, are rushing to remove their own mask requirements. So that brings the question up. Do you have to wear a mask on an airplane? An airline-by-airline look at new face mask policies as of Monday, April 18th, is featured in this article. Policies vary by airline and are subject to change, so make sure you stay up to date with your airline of choice as you continue to fly going forward during this pandemic. The list will be updated as U.S. airlines update their rules, and there's a full, extensive list of this in this article from USA Today via the Detroit Free Press. On the Detroit Free Press's website, we'll have a link to this full article that has all of these airlines, but we'll abbreviate it for you on watching on television and listening on radio with just some major airlines here in the U.S. American Airlines face masks will no longer be required for customers and employees at U.S. airports and on domestic flights. They say, quote, "Please note, face masks may still be required based on local ordinances or when traveling to or from certain international locations based on country requirements. requirements, the airline said in a statement. Continuing on, in keeping with our commitment to create a welcoming environment for everyone who travels with us, customers and team members may choose to continue to wear masks at their own discretion. From Delta Airlines, effective immediately, masks are optional for passengers inside U.S. airports and aboard their aircraft. Delta travelers and employees and customers as well may continue wearing masks if they so choose to do so. Delta in a statement said, quote, given the unexpected nature of this announcement, please be aware that customers, airline employees, and federal agency employees, such as TSA, may be receiving this information at different times, Delta said. Continuing on, you may experience inconsistent enforcement during the next 24 hours. As the news is more broadly communicated, remember to show understanding and patience with others who may be not aware of enforcement and of this rule no longer being required. Communications to customers and in-airport signage and announcements will be updated to share that masking is now optional on Delta Airlines. This may take a short period of time, and close quote. From United Airlines, effective immediately, masks are no longer required at United on domestic flights, select international flights dependent upon the arrival country's mask requirements, or at United States airports. United Airlines said in a statement, quote, while this means that our employees are no longer required to wear masks and no longer have to enforce mask requirements for most of the flying public, they will still be able to wear masks if they choose to do so, as the CDC continues to strongly recommend a mask on public transit, and closed quote. They continued on in a statement saying, quote, we will continue to closely monitor the situation in the event of changes. Please note, face masks may still be required based on local ordinances or when traveling to and from certain international locations based on requirements, and keeping with our commitment to a welcoming environment for those who travel with us, customers and team members may continue to choose to wear masks at their own discretion. From Frontier Airlines, effective immediately, passengers and employees are no longer required to wear masks on Frontier flights. For international travel, mask requirements remain dependent on the arrival and departure country's regulations. Quote, following today's ruling by a federal district court judge in Florida that the Biden administration mask mandate is unlawful, the mandate is no longer in effect while the ruling is being reviewed. Please note that individual airports and municipalities may still require masks, so customers and team members should continue to abide by mask rules within any facility that may require it. The friendly or not so friendly people over at Spirit Airlines say face masks are now optional on flights for passengers and crew. Quote, we understand some guests may want to continue wearing face coverings on flights, and that's perfectly fine under our optional policy, the airline said in a statement. Continuing on, for guests traveling internationally, please remember to check country-specific airport requirements before traveling. Spirit made, of course, no mention of whether or not they will charge you for wearing face masks on their flights. Additionally, on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, eventually today, from Bridge, Michigan, Michigan is boosting social studies training to teach, quote, the full breadth of history, end closed quote. Screaming, beatings, train whistles, and tearful goodbyes in Yiddish as officers split families apart. Those were the sounds of the Holocaust remembered by survivor Ellis Lewin. He was 7 when Nazis took him to the concentration camp at Auschwitz. Lewin died last year, but his story lives on in a video that Michigan social studies teachers watched on Wednesday during a webinar called Remembering the Holocaust, Never Forget to Never Repeat, end closed quote. The webinar kicked off a professional development series that the state superintendent, Michael Rice, hopes will help fill the gaps in social studies education that he believes resulted from harmful federal policies beginning in 2002. That's when the government rolled out President George W. Bush's signature education law, the No Child Left Behind Act. The No Child Left Behind Act aimed to establish high standards, measure progress through standardized testing, and improve student performance in reading and math, and use harsh penalties to hold schools accountable for student performance. Their aim is to provide tools for teachers to lead robust classroom discussions that put historical events into context. Quote, those conversations are crucial and critical to further learning, not only about the Holocaust, but other aspects of social studies that we want our young people to know about as they move into the adult world and as part of an active part of society. One of the officials told the 115 webinar participants, mostly middle school and high school teachers. The webinar series continues in June with a presentation on a guide from the Confederation of Michigan Tribal Educational Departments for teaching about the history and contributions of indigenous people. Future seminar topics include the civil rights movement, Asian Asian immigration, and citizenship. All sessions will sharply focus on Michigan social studies standards, organizers said. The professional development effort is just one piece of a plan that includes an effort to diversify reading materials across disciplines so students can see themselves represented in books, Rice said. He continued on by saying, quote, "I see these as related, diversity in literature and comprehensive history instruction. We're preparing our young people to enter a diverse world, to navigate a diverse world," and close quote. The renewed effort comes against a backdrop of vigorous national debate over how schools teach about racism. The conflict has led to Republican calls to ban books, prescribe how history of slavery is taught, and require teachers to publicly post lesson plans. The debate also flared in Michigan, where members of the State Board of Education argued at a meeting on Tuesday of last week over whether white supremacy still exists and how students should be taught about it. These conflicts were not the impetus for the webinar series, but organizers say they kept them in mind during planning sessions. Quote, "We're teaching kids what really happened," said Nick Orlowski, president of the Michigan Council for History Education and director of school leadership for the charter school management company CS Partners. He continued on by saying, quote, "That means kids are going to learn about sexism, racism, and ableism. We're trying to raise empathetic, understanding, caring believers in democracy," and closed quote. Professional development on the Holocaust and attempts to erase indigenous culture can translate to teaching about racism and other fraught topics too, said Bob Kefgen, spokesperson for the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals. Quote, "If teachers are better prepared and better equipped to have crucial conversations with students, it can diffuse some of the concerns being raised," and closed quote. Rice hopes that the webinar series will deepen teachers' understanding of issues, invigorate their lesson planning, and help them connect historical moments in ways that resonate deeply with their students. He wants teachers to move away from the chronological teaching of history and toward a more holistic approach. Instead of grouping together major historical events of the 1920s, passage of the 19th Amendment, the opening of King Tut's tomb, Charles Lindbergh's first flight across the Atlantic, the start of the Great Depression, and so on, lessons can be taught thematically, Rice said. For example, teachers could design lesson plans around the women's suffrage movement, including its beginnings in the 1840s and disagreements over whether suffragettes should fight black disenfranchisement and ways the movement changed democracy. Quote, "It will help students understand multiple perspectives of history and be able to explore those perspectives," says Rebecca Bush, president of the Michigan Council for Social Studies, which helped design the webinar series. Teachers can now register for the June 29th webinar, which will be about using the Indigenous Developed Social Studies Resource Guide to teach to and about First Nations peoples. That article from Bridge, Michigan on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus at some point today. And lastly, making headlines, and this will be posted again on our website at some point today on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. From our friends at the Detroit News, after the snow, a gradual warm up to about 80 degrees will occur this week. It's more Michigan's spring in April for this week. First snow, then rain, then a little sunshine, and a big surge of warmth. Interstate 75's northbound lanes at Grange Hall in Oakland County were closed early on Tuesday for about an hour and a half due to icy conditions after widespread snow and rain on Monday. Other crashes north of Detroit include along 8 Mile and Southfield, kept emergency crews busy. On Monday, snow didn't reach its peak forecasts totals of 4 inches in Metro Detroit and 6 inches in the Thumb area after dry air surged into the region later on Monday, according to the National Weather Service. But for a while, the snow was coming down thick and fast across southeast Michigan. Lansing recorded less than half an inch of snow. About 2.5 inches was recorded in Highland, and 3.3 inches recorded in ONTV's territory out there in Lake Orion. Troy recorded over 2 inches. Port Huron and Lexington saw nearly 3.5 inches. About 2 inches fell in the city of Detroit. Tuesday, today, temperatures will still be around 20 degrees below normal, and it will be breezy. The Weather Service says temperatures will remain in the mid-40s with up to 30-mile-an-hour winds, and showers, snows, flurries are possible as well later on this morning. On Wednesday, sunshine will be abundant throughout the region. Good news there. Quote, full sunshine should get temperatures into the 50s, which is still some 5 to 10 degrees below normal, the Weather Service says, but the warming temperatures are a sign of things to come on Thursday. Showers return on Wednesday overnight into Thursday morning, but temperatures for southeast Michigan will be solidly in the 60s, with some areas even approaching 70 degrees despite the widespread rain. Then on Friday, temperatures will be a little bit cooler than Thursday, but according to the Weather Service, quote, the stage will then be set for a warm front to begin working back northward late on Friday, and by the weekend, it could get hot. For Saturday, the National Weather Service says, quote, easy middle to upper 70s for the daytime temperatures, with some possibility that 80 could be reached by Sunday, and closed quote. All of those headlines eventually will be on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, as well as those ever helpful links to accurate information and up-to-date information on COVID-19 from the CDC, the MDHHS, and the Oakland County Health Division, which is already on that page, and there's nothing WordPress can do about it to mess that up. We have a great program ahead on this Tuesday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. Coming up next, we'll talk about COVID-19. Get an update where we're at, where we're going, where we need to be, how long it might take us to get there with Dr. Russell Faust from the Oakland County Health Division. And then at 10:40 a.m., we'll talk to Jason Charnas from JVS Human Services and Kadima. That's all up next on the Oakland County Megacast.
We as Michiganders feel connected to this resource in a way that I think is really powerful.
Conservation starts with a caring, committed community.
For me, it's peaceful to have a relationship with the river.
Every single one of us has a role to make sure that those waterways stay safe and healthy, being careful about what goes down the storm drain.
Just even eliminating some of your single-use plastic makes a difference.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Joining us now is the Chief Medical Officer at the Oakland County Health Division, Dr. Russell Faust, back with us once again on the Oakland County Megacast. Dr. Faust, thank you for being here.
Good to see you again, Tyler. Thanks for inviting.
Yeah, good to see you as well. So the BA2 variant of COVID-19, it seems to be becoming more dominant in the U.S. as of past Wednesday. Michigan reported 3,215 new cases of COVID and 70 virus-related deaths on Wednesday. It's an average of about 643 cases over the past 5 days. At this moment in time, definitely less drastic of a COVID-19 situation than the last time we spoke. But where does Michigan and particularly Oakland County stand on the COVID-19 front at this moment in time?
Well, I think overall, we still have some pretty good news. This week, CDC reports that we are at 71 cases per 100,000 of population, which still keeps us in the low transmission category. And I think, that's where we want to remain. We're seeing just a mild upcreep versus last week. But overall, we've been, in the downtrend for a couple months now. And overall, I think this is all good news. I mean, I think the thing that gives me great hope is that unlike what had been seen in Europe, say Denmark, specifically when this BA2 Omicron variant arrived there, they went into another huge surge, just an enormous surge. And we haven't been seeing that here. Omicron BA2 has been present here in Oakland County now for nearly 3 months. And the fact is, it's just kind of creeping up in terms of its takeover. It's about 70 to 75% of all the cases right now in Oakland and across state. But the fact is, we're not seeing that surge. And I speculate that the reason is most of us have already had COVID, or we are fully vaccinated for COVID. And so our level of immunity in the community is very high. And I think what we're seeing is whereas people are still transmitting at a low level, people are not really getting that ill. Now, having said that, this is not yet endemic. That is, it's not like influenza, which is just everywhere. COVID is still killing people. People are still dying at about 10 times the rate they do for the other respiratory viruses, including influenza or flu. So this is still a dangerous virus, and we still need to take precautions. A mask when you're out in public. And I'm hopeful now. I'm very optimistic now that we're headed into warm weather that we can take a lot of our meetings outdoors. We can open the windows and ventilate our offices when we do have meetings, I think overall we're in a very good place right now in Michigan, in the country, and especially in Oakland County.
So we previously, the last time we had you on, we were in the middle of a COVID-19 surge with the Omicron variant. At that time, statistical models from the medical community were showing an expectation that that surge was going to at some point taper off and then dramatically reduce. That model has seemed to have come to fruition at this moment in time. Where are those statistical models at now for our near future? And I would presume they probably don't go as far as next fall, but I would also imagine that next fall, as the weather starts to get cooler, that would be the next time potentially, if we don't reach an endemic stage by that point, which is not all too far away temporally, that could be the next choke point of this pandemic where surging cases could become a problem. Where do the models show us going with COVID-19 at this point?
I think the good news is that we have been a surprise to the models. Most of the models are based on what we see kind of headed this way. We're able to predict, we're able to model things based on what happens, say, in Europe or in Australia or South America or the UK specifically. And we're not seeing that. So I think we are now in a surprise phase, and that the models predicted that when Omicron BA2 hit here, that we would be surging again, and we're just not. So again, I'm cautiously optimistic in that, as we move through the summer months, we'll continue to at least stabilize, plateau, if not continue a downtrend. I am concerned for next fall because human nature is, we see some good signs like this, and everybody thinks, now we're out of this pandemic, start to celebrate, not wear a mask, not maintain distance, not wash our hands, not take those usual, mitigating actions. And we may be in trouble again when school comes back in next fall. But I do want to emphasize, we've had little minor blips. We here at Oakland County are one of the many kind of nodes on the network where our laboratory is sampling wastewater in the community. Wastewater is just a euphemism for sewage. And twice a week now, we're sampling at 17 individual sites. And during the time when, after a lot of the schools, colleges had gone on break and then returned, folks had traveled, had let down their guard, not worn masks when they were in crowds. We had little blips in some of those dormitory populations, for example, but we just didn't see that continued. We didn't see the transmission. And again, most of us have either had COVID or been fully vaccinated or both. And I think we're in a very good place right now.
We're joined by Dr.
That was a
Russell.
long ramble. I don't know whether I answered your question, Tyler.
No, you did. We're joined by Dr. Russell Faust, the Chief Medical Officer at the Oakland County Health Division, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. You can learn more information and keep up to date on COVID-19 from the Oakland County Health Division by visiting civiccentertv.com/coronavirus and clicking on our Oakland County link, which will take you directly to their COVID-19 specific webpage where you can learn more information about COVID-19 in Oakland County, as well as vaccinations and booster shots, should you still be in the need of either at this moment in time. So Dr. Faust, what are some of the other lessons that the medical community has learned from managing this crisis for these past 2 years plus, and how does that help to inform other minor medical crises that may pop up in the years to come, or the next great crisis like a COVID-19 situation that we could have in the future?
Thank you. I love that question, Tyler. We've learned quite a bit. We've learned to be prepared. The last government regime basically had dropped the ball, and many of our warehouses that should be stocked with masks, gowns, gloves, etc., just weren't. And we're well stocked now, nationally. The other thing is, right now, all of the local health departments are pretty well-oiled machines now that they've been doing this for 2 years with regard to testing and vaccinating. The outreach clinics they're just so good at it now that I think we're well prepared for the next epidemic or pandemic, as long as we maintain our readiness. I think we're certainly in a better position now. And I do want to emphasize that I'm grateful that the CDC at the federal level and state level has established this national network of collaborative labs and water resource commissions and public health teams to monitor wastewater. And already we're beginning to apply that to other viruses and other emerging pathogens that, we're just seeing kind of pop up now. We're beginning to apply these methods to keep the public safe. So I think a lot of good has come out of this.
So let's go into more detail on the wastewater testing. How does that testing then inform the next actions that are being taken by a health department, whether it be Oakland County, surrounding areas, or in a partnership between tri-county areas or at a state or regional level?
Sure. Well, the big benefit with regard to SARS-CoV-2 that causes COVID-19, the big benefit is that when we as we become infected, actually excrete in our stool, in our wastewater, we actually excrete viruses or particles of the virus that are detectable through testing in the wastewater prior to actually becoming clinically infected, that is manifesting the infection symptoms, and prior to us shedding virus, respiratory virus droplets. So the beauty there is that when we see that upsurge in virus in wastewater, we know that clinical cases are beginning to develop. And what we've been doing is monitoring wastewater in various congregate living facilities, dormitories, for example, and going in, testing everybody, finding the 2 or 3 people that are infected early and isolating them before they're able to transmit to everybody else and stopping an outbreak. So I think that's the model moving forward. Not all viruses have that kind of life cycle or presentation. But for those that do, the other coronaviruses and many other viruses, that's a good model. And I think the other value is that, as you point out, those collaborative teams, those partnerships moving forward have streamlined this process. And again, we are applying this to other hepatitis viruses, other coronaviruses, rather respiratory viruses, and some of the other emerging pathogens. And be happy to talk about that sometime, but that would take more than we have today.
We're joined by Dr. Russell Fauci, Chief Medical Director over at the Oakland County Health Division, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. More information on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. You click on the Oakland County link. It'll take you to the Oakland County Health Division's COVID-19 webpage, so you can learn more information about what they're doing to prevent the spread of COVID-19, to combat COVID-19 cases that are in Oakland County, as well as information on where you can get vaccinated or get your booster shot locally in the Oakland County area. civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Right there at the top of the page, CDC, NDHHS, Oakland County is the third to the right at the top of that page. Dr. Faust, as we've seen more variants pop up, it seems like the last couple variants, Omicron and even Delta, have been more highly transmissible, not necessarily producing stronger symptoms or a greater chance of negative symptoms. That's probably
or severe disease.
Or severe disease. Has kind of been the trend. It was what was seen more with Omicron. It's what's been seen with the BA2 subvariant of Omicron. As you and others on the scientific side of things in battling this pandemic are looking at COVID-19 as it continues to vary over time, is that kind of what's being imagined as these future variants are going to continue to be? They're going to be more easily spread, but maybe not be as deadly until we reach a point where we have seasonal uprisings of COVID-19 cases, but they're not at a point where they are at pandemic proportions that are overwhelming hospitals.
I think that's a pretty insightful question, Tyler. So the variants, every active infection is basically a factory of additional mutations. This is a mutating RNA virus. So every active infection produces more variants. The only variants that really survive or catch on and are transmitted are those variants that are more easily transmitted than the existing variant that's kind of spread through the population. So in order for a variant to really take over, you really can only do so by being more easily transmitted. Stickier, stick to the receptors a little bit better. There are many, possible mechanisms to be more transmissible. But yeah, I think moving forward, that's what we can expect. And I think as across our communities, the level of immunity is maintained or increased either through continued vaccination, as we do for influenza, or through natural or native immunity by being previously infected. I think moving forward, what we'll see is more easily transmitted variants, but less severe disease. And in fact, we see that right now. We're seeing transmission in the community at low, we're still in low level transmission, but we still see cases. But the difference is they're not filling our hospitals as they did, a year ago. They're just not filling our hospitals. And when I this is the number I check on a daily basis, because this really gives us an insight into how well we're doing in the community, is how many cases are in our hospitals. And it's extremely low. It's very reassuring. But I think you're correct. That's what we can expect.
And so, Dr. Faust, earlier on you mentioned that we're not at the point where COVID-19 is endemic. We are at a very low spread of COVID-19 in comparison to the past. The community spread isn't as severe as it has been. It continues to trend further toward going down. And then maybe this is a more complicated question than simply at a county level, and I know it is because this is a pandemic, it's worldwide. Where is that point where the scientific community, where the medical community would be able to properly declare something like COVID-19 to be reaching an endemic viral spread?
Yeah, that is a very complicated question, or the answer is very complicated. And I think there's a fair amount of disagreement among the medical and scientific community for what that trigger is, what that threshold is. What do we need to reach in terms of level of transmission? But I think really a lot of it has to do with the lethality of this virus. And so, the World Health Organization is still saying that we're still a way off from COVID-19 being endemic, but really the pandemic is not only the global aspect of this, many countries involved, but also the rapid growth of transmission and infection. We're really kind of coming out of that pandemic phase. And I think if we continue to be plateaued or kind of downtrending as we hit next fall, I think it will be reasonable to consider ourselves out of an emergency or pandemic kind of phase. Perhaps not technically endemic, according to all the medical scientists, but I think that would be a great milestone. I think beyond that, I think we'll have little epidemics of geographic clusters of infections and outbreaks. But I think we can all look forward to that time.
Dr. Faust, before we let you go, anything else at this time that would be important for people in Oakland County to be keeping front of mind on the COVID-19 front, or other things medically in the community?
Yeah, two things. And thanks for asking. Really, if you haven't gotten your flu shot, get your flu shot. If you are co-infected with SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, and influenza, your mortality risk goes up more than 6 times being infected by either one alone. You don't want to be infected with both. So get your flu shot. And the second thing is make sure that you're optimally, maximally vaccinated against COVID-19. We're out to a second booster now for eligible populations, but check the website, see where you are, get your second vaccination, get your booster if you qualify, get your second booster if you qualify, and stay healthy.
Dr. Faust, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tyler.
Did you know that nearly 3.31 million Americans don't get their annual checkup? Going to the doctor regularly is extremely important and is a crucial factor in maintaining good health. Make sure you are visiting your local doctor often and telling them about any health concerns you have. For more information, contact your local healthcare provider. This message is brought to you by WBHS Digital Media Arts Program and 89.3 Lakes FM.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at ivaccinate.org.
We may come from different organizations,
But we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Most of the pollution that goes into our rivers is carried by rainwater that flows off of roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
the leaves and bark of a single tree can retain a surprising amount of rainwater. Depending on its size and species, it could be 100 gallons or more.
It is estimated that an urban forest can reduce annual runoff by up to 7%.
Here's one thing that we know can help keep our water clean.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. Learn more about the program by visiting our website at civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll learn more information about our entire network of stations all across Oakland County. Joining us now is the Director of Business and Career Services at JVS Human Services and Kadima. Jason Charnas joins us now on the Oakland County Megacast. Jason, thank you for being with us.
Absolutely, Tyler. Thanks very much for letting me talk and letting me share about these great programs we've got.
Yeah, so we've talked with JVS and Kadima in the past about a number of different career programs, career training opportunities, virtual webinars, and so on, and a number of different topics that are related to going into the job market at this particular time, at this unique time in our history. At this time, a lot of these job interviews, and pardon me as my earpiece falls out, during the pandemic, we've had a number of these interviews transition from being in person, as they've traditionally been, to being over a virtual setting, whether that be Zoom or Skype or FaceTime or Google or some other format. But there's also some unique changes to even virtual interviews, as well as some of them are only one way. Can you tell us about the unique opportunities and some of the drawbacks or strategical musts for somebody that's going into a job interview in a one-way virtual job interview?
Yeah, absolutely. So because of the pandemic over the last couple of years, many people have become really familiar with Zoom and video interviewing, video meetings, video conversations. There are many companies prior to the pandemic, and frankly ramped up even more, that are now utilizing one-way video interviewing as a piece of the interview process. It's being used as a screening tool. So traditionally, an HR representative or recruiter would have a short conversation with the job applicant, check off a couple boxes, make sure that they were mostly appropriate for the role or met those significant criteria, and then move them on to that next round. So what this does for a business, for a company, is it allows them to screen many applicants at the same time, regardless of their own internal staffing structure. They may have one HR person, they may have a whole team of people, but what they can do is send a link and screen people with the exact same questions, and they can review those responses when it works for them. And so for an applicant, the timing, the scheduling is great. You may have a job, you may have restrictions, you don't have to pigeonhole your schedule into what works for the company. Instead, you can log into your computer given a time parameter, and you can complete that interview process. It helps also for companies that utilize a lot of technology, or perhaps a job that is remote or partially remote. It also helps the company to assess what technological skills, computer skills people would have if that were to be a part of the process. The downside, the challenge for somebody who's applying for a job, talking to a computer one way and still showing personality, still showing that you can communicate with people, can be really challenging. Instead of getting body language, feedback, conversation, you have to do it on your own, and you have to be able to answer those questions on your own and to sound confident.
And so how do you suggest that people then prepare for these formats of interviews? Because I would imagine it's a little bit off-putting, or at the very least, it just seems very impersonal to be answering these questions as you would traditionally be answering them to another person, reading their body language, communicating with them, and instead communicating those answers in a limited time, or in some cases maybe unlimited, to a computer screen where you're staring at the screen or you're staring at your camera. There's nobody there, and you don't even know if anyone's ever going to hear it.
Absolutely. So there's two sort of different types of preparation. The first type is preparing for one of these interviews is the same as preparing for any video interview, right? So you want to make sure your location is appropriate. Excuse me. So quiet, hopefully in a place where you can close the door if there are other people or pets around. You want to do your best to have good lighting, good camera angle, background to make it as appropriate as you can, right? You don't want to have dirty clothes, ideally not a bed or anything like that. Again, especially if you're talking about a job where you may be working remote fully, they may also, the company will be assessing whether you have the appropriate workspace to be able to do that. So, the other thing is, of course, when you're able to be able to do whatever virtual video interview, one way or two way, by way of a computer versus using a phone. And if you're using a phone, which sometimes that's the only option, propped, right? Rested on something, tripod, if that's a thing in your house, but so that it's stable and not rocky in all over the place. So that's the generic, how do I prepare? How do I get ready for this virtual thing? The second part of it, the one way. So I don't know if I can stress this enough, but read the instructions, read the directions carefully, understand what you're being asked to do, understand the parameters. If there's a due date, and there typically is a specified time frame that it needs to be completed by, meet the deadline. If you're serious about the job and the job search, that says quite a bit about you to the employer. I did it within the within the time frame that was required. Practice the best that you can. There are lots of resources, including JVS, where we can help you practice for your interview. You want to be personable, you want to be confident, but be authentic. And I know that doesn't always sound right? But having a conversation alone, you want to use a normal tone, pitch, cadence that you do when you're speaking. Don't overly exaggerate, but be confident, be authentic. Looking at the camera is important, right in the camera angle, like I said before. And then the other part is dress appropriately. So this is not a pajamas, jeans, and t-shirt likely type of an interview. Even if the environment is more casual, you want to be able to dress professionally for that job. The other thing that not all HR recruiters, not all companies, but many will say, if you have questions, if you're not sure, call us, email us, contact us. The HR field has changed, unemployment, lots of openings. They're willing to help. They want to help. They want to be successful themselves, which is by onboarding people, and they want to help people to be successful. So in terms of preparation, those are some of the really great ways that one could be prepared.
We're joined by Jason Charnas, the Director of Business and Career Services at JVS and Kadima, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. More information on the website, jvshumanservices.org. That's jvshumanservices.org. Can you talk to us about, there's a particular method called the STAR interview method. Can you talk about how that comes into play, especially in a one-way interview?
So the STAR method is a great method for preparing and answering questions. It's an acronym. S means situation. You want to set the scene. Talk about what the situation is. You're going to make sure you give detail. Detail is always really important. T in STAR is task. You want to talk about what your situation was. What your responsibility in that situation. A is action. What steps did you take and are results? What were the results that were achieved? So this STAR method is really beneficial for behavioral interview questions. Behavioral interview, things like, tell me about a time when. What do you do when? Have you ever? Give me an example. Describe a situation. So real life examples. So they want to know what that looked like. So it could be really specific, right? Tell me about a time when you didn't meet a client's expectations. And we can replace client for customer, client for coworker, client for supervisor, but share an example. And by the way, the examples that you're going to share or that somebody may choose to share are not always about success. Sometimes the example is it didn't work out at the end, the results, the R, didn't work out the way I had hoped. I didn't meet those clients' expectations. But the follow-up, the part of the conversation is, what did you do? Why didn't you? How would you change? What would you do next time? What did you learn? Businesses, employers, they want to know not only that you have the skills and experience to do a specific set of tasks or responsibilities, they also want to know that you have the ability to learn, to change, to grow within that job. We do not all bat 1,000, right? Sometimes the situation may make it so you can't be successful, which is fine, but to describe what that could look like. It could be, tell me about a time you achieved a goal that you thought was out of reach. There are a lot of situations, a lot of really specifics, but that STAR method specific to the behavioral interview questions is really a great way to answer this question.
Jason, for these one-way interviews that are being conducted virtually, are there any specific do's and don'ts within this format of interviewing for a job that applicants should be aware of before they go in? They may be a great interviewer, they may follow the directions to a T, but there should be other things that they are aware of, anything of that nature.
Tyler, that's a great question. So here's my little secret. I have never participated in a one-way interview. And I know we at JVS hear a lot of our clients asking about them and how can we help them? Because I don't know much about it, I went to a source. So we have a webinar scheduled for Wednesday, April 20th, tomorrow at noon on Zoom. And I've invited the professionals, people that are using one-way interviews as a screening tool. So I have two people. I have Sean Berry, who's the VP of Talent Acquisition at Allstate, and Candace Jareds, who is the team lead for campus recruiting, again, with Allstate. They use this system. And at this workshop, at this webinar that we have tomorrow, they're going to show screenshots. They're going to show the sort of behind the scenes of what they see, what a candidate would see, and they're going to talk about those successes. How do you answer those questions? How do you prepare? One of the things that many of and there's a lot of different formats and companies that are sort of third-party add-ons that businesses will use, but you don't typically have an unlimited amount of time to answer a question, right? And again, these aren't meant to be really, really in-depth. Typically, it's a screening. They want to make sure you have some of the basic check marks, skills, and experience to be moving forward. So when it comes to this and you read the question, you want to be able to answer the question that they're asking. And you want to answer the question in that specified time. Often, I understand that there is a countdown clock, some version of you're getting your time is wrapping up, and so to be able to answer and to follow that's the piece of it. And again, to the best that you're able to show that you have the skills and experience for the role that you've applied for, and to answer the questions clearly is a pretty significant part of that success.
We're joined by Jason Charnas from JVS and Kadima. He's their Director of Business and Career Services, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. Jason, any other upcoming events with JVS and Kadima through their Career Services Department that we should be keeping an eye out for as we go forward? Obviously, you mentioned this upcoming webinar on virtual interviews, particularly these one-way interviews, but any other programs coming up that may be of interest to people?
Great question. So we have a lot of programs. We're always adding new onto our calendar. The best way to get up-to-date information about our programs, frankly, we have three different ways. They can follow JVS Detroit on LinkedIn, and there we post all of our events. Number two, JVS Detroit on Facebook. Again, we post all of our events. And then the third place, depending on where your comfort is and how you navigate the web, jvshumanservices.org. On our website, there is a spot that says upcoming events. And again, that's a place we're regularly posting. But in addition to workshops and webinars, many of our programs are free and open to the full community. So if somebody is contemplating a job search or a career switch, we have the staff that can work one-on-one with people and really then to individualize what those resources and what that assistance can look like for people preparing or actively in a job search.
And so, Jason, if people want to participate in the upcoming one-way interviews, webinar through JVS and Kadima, or any of these other programs, where can they go to get more information?
Great. So again, this one, they can go to our Facebook page or the website. We have a Zoom registration link for this event. This event does require registration so that you can get a copy of the Zoom link. People that are interested in registering or just want to talk, they can always call 248-233-4230 is a great way to reach me directly. Employment help at jvshumanservices.org is a great way to email and ask some questions, set up a time to talk in our office, over the phone, on Zoom. We're meeting people where they're comfortable.
Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Tyler, I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. More information on their website, jvshumanservices.org. That's jvshumanservices.org. We're going to take a break here on our entire network, including our radio homes for the Megacast, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. On the other side, we'll kick off the Michigan Megacast with Dewey Steffen from Great Lakes Wealth. We'll talk about investing. We'll talk about saving. We'll talk about what you college students that are graduating soon will be eventually, hopefully pretty soon, getting into the job market should be doing to save for your retirement. It's a long ways away, but there's a lot of steps that can be taken. to ensure your financial future and financial success. We'll talk to Dewey Steffen after this break. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
Joining us now is the CEO and the Chief Investment Officer with Great Lakes Wealth and the one of the co-hosts of the What Do We Do podcast. Dewey Steffen's back with us once again on the Megacast. Dewey, thank you for being with us.
Hey, Tyler, great to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Hey, good to see you as well. So, kind of an interesting time we're in. The economy's kind of all over the place. High inflation, low unemployment rate, up and down stock market, and then there's never any certainty necessarily in the stock market or in investing. So at this time, what is your advice in terms of things that people should be focusing on in the market that may be protective, but also be putting out a little bit of that risk that could be a big boom for them in the future?
Well, Tyler, you hit it right on the head. As Confucius say, may you live in interesting times. And we certainly have those. So yes, it comes back to the basics though, of the 3 Ps in this environment. Don't panic, be patient, and execute your plan. So as we always say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So whether it's certain times of maybe a year or two ago to uncertain times of now, if you will, you always just have to have a plan and, you're on your way.
We're joined by Dewey Steffen, the CEO and Chief Investment Officer of Great Lakes Wealth, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. So inflation's high, the cost of goods and services are also at record high levels in some cases. How does that change the way that you approach investment advice and how people that are out in the market should be approaching their investments, given that at some point this adjustment will be made, things may return back to some semblance of normal, but it could be a while in the market before that adjustment's made?
Tyler, again, you're right on it. So this is part of the business cycle. For a long time, we were in the early phase, the middle phase. We think we're in the late phase. And then the 4th phase is actually recession. So we haven't talked about recession in a long time. In 2008, we had the Great Recession. More recently, when COVID started, we had a mild, fast recession. A recession is 2 quarters back-to-back of negative GDP. So with high inflation, as you mentioned, with all the things that are changing, your investment strategy needs to change as well. What got us here is not what's going to get us there in terms of investing. So we say things like rotate and rebalance.
So when you're talking about preparing yourself for a potential recession, that can, I would imagine, for a lot of people, be spooky, be something that spooks them into maybe getting out of the market in certain places or moving some of their money around into safer investments. What should they be doing to prepare for that point where we do go through the cycle and into the recession point so that they're not losing a ton of money in the market from their investments, from their investment stock prices going down due to the recession and the ultimate effects of that, but also in a way that doesn't affect them and their potential gains down the line when the market does adjust back to some semblance of normal or in a positive direction?
Certainly. So we're not in recession yet. So let's slow down and understand where we are. You mentioned our podcast. So the What Do We Do podcast, I have our little mug right here. We had an episode that came out last Wednesday, number 57, and we talked about at the end of the first quarter and how to invest for success for the rest of this year. We talked about this being the late stage of the business cycle from our perspective, and the investments are different. So you need to have hard assets. You need to have investments that pay dividends. You need to recognize, again, where we are and have a playbook for success. And Tyler, to your point, what got us here is not what's going to get us there. And with a recession, it doesn't have to be a deep dive recession. It can be what's called a mild recession. And the reason the markets are under pressure and a lot of the stock markets globally are negative, and some of them are into what they call bear markets, if you want to call it that, it's because people are trying to front run and prepare and get out prior to this recession. And again, we don't think that's appropriate because we're not in recession yet. So again, it's not convoluted. It's just you need to understand what you're trying to accomplish and why. But in late stage investing, it is not the tech stocks that get you where you need to be. When the Fed is raising rates, when there is a slowdown in the economy, it is not the NASDAQ, it is not the tech stocks that lead the charge. It is a whole new set of investments. Those, again, that pay dividends, those that are more the large cap in nature. So again, you need to understand what you have and where you're going.
We're joined by Dewey Steffen, CEO and Chief Investment Officer with Great Lakes Wealth. More information on the website, greatlakeswealth.us. And we also mentioned the What Do We Do podcast. You can learn more information and view their episodes and listen to their episodes on whatdowedopodcast.com. That's what Dewey, D-E-W-E-Y, do podcast.com for more information on the podcast. And, of course, you can learn more about it as well at greatlakeswealth.us. And so we're in the middle of April. We're approaching the end of the school year for colleges and universities. That means graduation. That means new people coming into the job market and full-time work. And some of those will have benefits with their new employers and be able to begin their own investing, or be able to do, or are more than capable of doing so now, even before that. So for these young people that are coming into the workforce, that are coming into the market for the first time, what is your advice for them as they're entering this market, especially given the times that we're in, to put their best foot forward and start planning for their future?
Tyler, great question. And this is an exciting time to be a college graduate. It might be filled with anxiety, but in days gone by and decades past, students would come out of college and say, there's no jobs. There's no jobs. I don't know what to do. I can't get a job. This will be the first time ever in history that the kids coming out of college won't be able to get jobs and live the best life, compared to their parents and grandparents. Well, it's the opposite. There are 11 million jobs posted and only 6 million people looking. We have full employment of 3.6% unemployment, which is full employment. However, there's 11 million jobs available out there. And we did a podcast on this thing called the Great Resignation, where more than 50% of people working are not happy where they're at. A lot of times the employees can dictate wages right now. There's a lot of things going on. So if I'm coming out of college now, I am fired up. So what you need to do is then be responsible. Certainly when you get that opportunity and get employment, then set yourself up for success. Enroll immediately into the company-sponsored retirement plan, either a 401k or 403b. And if they match, you absolutely better be putting enough of your own money in to get that entire match. And then from there, you just take steps 2, 3, and 4. But I'll take a break, see what you have to say.
And so with those students coming out, with them getting those jobs that are available to them, and many of those having benefits be attached to them as an incentive to get some of these high quality candidates fresh out of college, fresh out of university into these jobs, that also brings up the topic of student loan debt. On one hand, you have an opportunity to invest your money and get that full match, but on the other hand, your paychecks, by and large, going toward your bills and certainly to start paying down those debts. So what's your advice for those students coming out into the workforce and into the market now, with their loans now beginning to be due in full capacity, to make that balance between paying their bills, of course, is always important, but also not neglecting their financial planning for the future?
Yeah, it's just like everything else. You need to have a diversified portfolio. You need to have good debt and retire or get rid of or service bad debt. You also need to make sure you have good investments and get rid of or service or retire bad investments. So it kind of goes both ways. With that, in terms of your debt and where we're at now, interest rates are going up. And that doesn't matter whether it's your school loans and that debt or credit card debt. or a mortgage. So we say deal with debt. That's actually number one, deal with debt. So get rid of bad debt, but also take advantage of good debt. If you are going to be getting purchase a new home or a condo or something, a car, whatever it might be, get those interest rates locked in now. They're going to be going higher. So deal with debt, get rid of bad debt, and lock in what we would consider good debt. That's number one, Tyler. And then after that, you need to invest in your company plan. You need to also, with student debt, it's probably in the lower interest rate range. So you can make your minimum payments on that, service that debt, but also with the extra income that you have, don't blow it. Don't go party. Don't start with vacations. Make sure you start responsibly, invest for success, deal with debt, and you're on your way to prosperity.
We're joined by Dewey Steffen, CEO and Chief Investment Officer at Great Lakes Wealth. Learn more information on their website, greatlakeswealth.us, and a ton of financial tips and investment tips from their podcast, the What Do We Do podcast, whatdowedopodcast.com for more information and to watch and listen to all of their episodes and find their social media as well. And so, Dewey, as you have all these different options in the market, at this given time, there's always that debate between beyond your company-matched investments, usually a 401k, do you invest in an IRA, in a Roth IRA, or in some other investment form in the market? Is it a good time for an IRA to start that off, or to really put a lot of effort into building an IRA or a Roth IRA at this time, given the market that we're in?
Absolutely. So taxes are predicted to go up as well because of paying for all the things dealing with COVID, plus the situation we're in. So your 401k at work or 403b, as well as IRAs and Roths, those are considered tax sheltered or tax-free vehicles, Tyler. So they're so important for today because you can get at least tax deferred growth, but maybe even tax-free growth. And when tax rates will be higher, as again, younger people have increases in their wages, your tax rate goes up as well. So all the way around, make sure you do your 401k or 403b, even if there is no match. That doesn't matter. Still do that. And then if you qualify for a Roth IRA, which is basically under $140,000 of income for this year, if you're single, and you actually have until April 18th, which is next Monday, to put in for last year, so it's not too late for 2021. So do your Roth IRA, absolutely, number one, no doubt about it.
So on that note, you mentioned that April 18th deadline for putting money into your IRA for the 2021 tax year, despite us being 4 months and some change into 2022. How can that impact ultimately your tax implications for 2021 and even impact potentially your tax return, which then can be further invested into the market?
Well, even if you've already filed your 2021 tax return, you can still amend it, or in this case, you can just still deposit to a Roth IRA if you qualify. It does not have any bearing on your tax return. There's no deductions. There's no, penalties. There's no anything. So you can still go ahead and do your Roth IRA. When you start talking about different retirement vehicles, whether that's a traditional IRA, that's a whole nother ball of wax. And as we always say, please consult a tax professional, a CPA, a financial advisor. Don't go it alone. Find some help, and we'll be happy to help.
More information on their website and get in contact with them for help if you so choose to do so. GreatLakesWealth.us. That's GreatLakesWealth.us. Their podcast, What Do We Do podcast, Dewey, D-E-W-E-Y, What Do We Do podcast.com to listen to all those episodes. And let's talk about the What Do We Do podcast. You mentioned some of the more recent episodes. What is on the docket for the What Do We Do podcast? What sort of advice can listeners expect to learn in the near future?
Tyler, I am so excited to share that our podcast, which is now almost 2 years old, has over 30,000 downloads and views and listens. That's incredible, from something that just started here as a community project during COVID to help members of our community not just survive, but thrive. And as we've grown and the podcast has grown, so has our content. I do have a co-host, Brooke Allen. She's a radio on-air personality. She's fantastic. So her and I kind of tackle subjects together. But We also bring in guests. And Tyler, this is where it's exciting. We've had amazing guests on the past. We've had Red Wing great Darren McCarty. We've had Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary. Here locally, and this would be important for those that are maybe coming out of college, we had Casey Herbis, the Chief Marketing Officer at Rocket Mortgage. We've had recently David Provost, the retired chairman of the board from Huntington Bank. But here who's coming up next. We have Tom Chilani. He is a businessman local. He is a philanthropist, national, global. He'll be coming on in the next month or so to talk about, how his family started from modest means and how he's grown this amazing empire of entrepreneurship. So that's Tom Chilani coming up. And then to end of season 2, we have a commitment from LPGA star Jessica Korda, and she's going to give an interview with us exclusive for the What Do We Do podcast in June. And she, again, is going to talk about all things in her world, from investing to what it takes to be a successful athlete and everything from being a female in a competitive environment. So we're excited for the content we have in terms of educating in financial matters, but also bringing on leaders in the community to tell their story and their suggestions to help our community not just survive, but thrive.
GreatLakesWealth.us is their website, GreatLakesWealth.us, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn at Great Lakes Wealth as well. The What Do We Do podcast can be found online, whatdowedopodcast.com, or by following any of the Great Lakes Wealth social media, again, at Great Lakes Wealth. Dewey, thank you for joining us.
Hey, awesome to be here with you, Tyler. Thanks again for having me.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM.
Whether you're the city,
the county,
or the Huron River Watershed Council,
we work together to protect water resources for everyone.
Most of the pollution entering our rivers is carried by rainwater that runs off roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
A rain garden helps catch stormwater runoff.
Rain gardens and their plants help dirty runoff soak into the ground.
You can do your part to help keep our water clean.
Learn about rain gardens and native plants.
So consider a rain garden in your home landscaping.
Catch the runoff with a rain garden.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was gonna grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. You know, being 27 and a mom and a wife and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary, and if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
A message from the staff of Michigan's Crime Victim Compensation Program.
Anyone can be a victim of crime
and suffer lasting trauma, physically, emotionally, and financially.
But you are not alone.
If you're struggling financially due to a crime,
we're here
for you.
Find out if you qualify for crime victim compensation.
Call 877-251-7373 or visit michigan.gov/crime-victim.
A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Victim Services.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Whether you're the city,
the county,
or the Huron River Watershed Council.
As partners, working together to protect our water resources, we agree.
Pet waste is a source of harmful bacteria in the Huron River.
When it's left on the ground, it can wash into the storm drains.
These lead directly to our streams. No filters, no treatment.
Here's one thing we know that can help keep our water clean.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
So pick up pet waste and trash it.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal. or chat online at michigan.gov/mycal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Motorcyclists are hard to see. To keep everyone safer, it's important to always look for them and know where most crashes occur. 84% of motorcycle and vehicle crashes happen on streets, not highways. And most crashes with motorcyclists occur when vehicle drivers are turning left. So before turning, especially to the left, make sure you look for motorcyclists. Then look again. It could save a life.
Welcome back to the Michigan Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. To learn more about our program at civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll also find links to every single one of our full episodes and individual interviews on demand, as well as each of our partnering TV, radio, and web outlets, including My Michigan TV, otherwise known as MyMime. Joining us now is the CEO of Michigan Works Association. Ryan Hundt is with us now on the Michigan Megacast. Ryan, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Tyler. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning.
Yeah, good to have you with us as well. So let's start off. For those that may be unfamiliar, can you tell us what the Michigan Works Association is and what it does to help workforce development in the state of Michigan, but also to help and advocate for workers in the state of Michigan?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Michigan Works Association, we're a nonprofit based in Lansing, and you may have heard of the Michigan Works system in Michigan. Hopefully many of the viewers today are familiar with their local Michigan Works office. There are 16 Michigan Works agencies throughout the state of Michigan, strategically located throughout all corners of the state. Those 16 Michigan Works agencies have 66 service centers and 33 one-stop centers that are all physical locations throughout the state. And those facilities and the staff that are there in those buildings are there to serve both job seekers in our communities and employers who are looking to hire individuals each day in a range of industries, a range of occupations. So if you're looking for job seeker support, or if you're an employer looking to make some hires in your local community, the Michigan Works Office, you can really think of it as an extension of your HR team, there to support the hiring and the employability skills and the upskilling of our workforce here in the state of Michigan. And so the Michigan Works Association represents those 16 Michigan Works offices across the state. And we do that in 3 key buckets. The first bucket is primarily legislative advocacy at the federal and the state level. We recognize that workforce development is going to be a key component in ensuring that the state of Michigan remains on the right track toward long-term economic resiliency, especially as we hopefully start coming out of the pandemic a little bit more here in the coming months. We also focus on professional development. We host a number of workshops and training sessions for frontline Michigan Works staff at each of those 16 agencies across the state on an annual basis. We have a few that are actually going on this week. And then we also focus on raising the visibility of the workforce system in Michigan, and we do so through a number of key events throughout the year. We just had our annual Impact Awards in Lansing in late March, just a few weeks ago, where we had a winner from each of the 16 Michigan Works agencies. Some of them were employers, some of them were employees of companies in our communities, some were job seekers or community partners. And so through those efforts and awarding and recognizing those individual contributors to our economy, we're raising the visibility of all the things that our workforce system here in Michigan can accomplish through the Michigan Works system. And then we also have our annual conference coming up September 11th through the 13th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort in Mount Pleasant. That'll be our first in-person annual conference in over 2 years.
So Ryan, at this moment in time, given that, as you said, we're starting to, especially economically, come out from the throes of the pandemic, and socially and societally in Michigan and the U.S., across the world, we're seeing things sort of transition away from pandemic era behaviors and pandemic era precautions as of now, and that could change. But at this moment in time, where is Michigan economically, and especially with the job market, in terms of availability, in terms of what is open, and in terms of what's being looked for in an employee by many of the companies that have these job openings?
Yep, great question. There's some good news and some bad news, right? The good news is Michigan's economic recovery from the pandemic continues to, I think, exceed expectations from many of us who have been living through and working with both employers and job seekers the last couple of years, just to keep them engaged in the economy, make sure that the businesses have the right folks to hire, but also the job seekers have the right skills and the right resources to get into positions that are of higher wage quality, maybe an opportunity for them to continue upskilling themselves and being able to raise a family and support themselves in their community. So the good news is, again, the economy in Michigan continues to rebound quite extraordinarily. The bad news, however, is here in Michigan, we have a lower than average labor force participation rate when you look across the national economy right now. And that's due to a number of factors. Right here in Michigan, for example, the hospitality industry was one of the hardest hit industries in Michigan. And when you compare that to the hospitality industry across the entire nation, Michigan saw a rather dramatic effect in a negative fashion as a result of the pandemic, especially early on, in the spring and summer months of 2020. That has continued to rebound. However, we're still seeing a number of job openings in some of those areas in the hospitality industry in Michigan. And just as well as anybody, Tyler, we rely heavily on our tourism industry, not just in the summer months with beautiful northern Michigan. If you go to Traverse City or Alpena and you enjoy the beaches and the wonderful tourist destinations, but it's really a year-round tourist attraction for individuals, not just in the U.S., but globally as well. So we're doing all that we can to help support those workers in the hospitality industry and working with other partners like at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association to help out with that industry. So the more that we can do to help increase the labor force participation rates in Michigan, we're happy to partner with other public stakeholders like the Department of Labor and economic opportunity, and also private stakeholders and companies to ensure that when they're looking for eligible qualified workers, they have the right resources in place. Maybe there's some federal or some state assistance they can tap into to help hire different populations, such as those who may have been previously incarcerated that are now returning to work, maybe individuals with disabilities, just trying to overturn any leaf that they can in order to find that qualified talent here in Michigan in order to raise those labor force participation rates.
We're joined by Ryan Hundt, the Chief Executive Officer of the Michigan Works Association, joining us on the Michigan Megacast. More information on their website, michiganworks.org. That's michiganworks.org. For those who aren't qualified for certain jobs, what do you recommend to become more skilled or to put themselves in a more advantageous position to acquire some of these open jobs that they may be seeking at this time, whether they are currently at another job and continue to labor at that job, or are out of the job market at this point, maybe on unemployment or an expired unemployment?
Great question. What we're seeing right now, and this is not just here in Michigan, this is really nationally and in many cases globally, especially in some of our competing countries across the entire world. It's going to take a more educated, more qualified, better skilled workforce in order for us to compete in a 21st century global economy, especially in some of the driving industries like advanced manufacturing and technology. We're the state that put the world on wheels, and in order for us to continue maximizing our potential and winning the future in many of these driving industries, we know that we need folks who have more than just a high school diploma. We need people with post-secondary credentials. It may not necessarily be an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, but we need folks with the right credentials and the right certifications in order for Michigan to remain globally competitive and globally relevant for that matter. And so you may have heard of Governor Whitmer's 60 by 30 initiative. And the goal there is by 2030, 60% of working age adults in Michigan to have some type of post-secondary degree or credential. And what we're seeing, if you look at the state's top 50 hot jobs through 2028, the bulk of those jobs are going to require some type of post-secondary credential or post-secondary degree. And so what we're encouraging individuals is to contact their local Michigan Works office in their community. You can get hooked up with a number of individuals who are the frontline staff there, and in and day out, they're helping to serve as career coaches for job seekers and helping them align their passions and their interests with in-demand jobs of the future by upskilling themselves, looking for not only the technical skills that individuals need, but also the employability skills, or what's oftentimes referenced as soft skills. You think of time management, the ability to work in a team environment. Those are critical skills right now that can help set individuals apart from the rest of the competition if they're looking for new employment opportunities. And again, by engaging with their local Michigan Works office, there's a number of resources that individuals can tap into that can help offset the cost or maybe even eliminate the cost altogether for upskilling opportunities.
On the other side of that coin, you have these employers that are looking to fill a lot of these jobs. In some cases, they have a massive openings in their companies, in certain departments of their companies, certainly in certain industries. Like you had said, you mentioned hospitality in particular is really hurting for employees at this time. You were quoted recently in a Detroit Free Press article that focused on the so-called Great Resignation, particularly focusing on restaurant workers, those in hospitality, restaurant workers, those working in hotels, and so on, and which you referred to that situation as the, quote, great upgrade, not great resignation. What do you mean by that, and how does that context play into what employers should be focusing on at this point to fill some of those job openings, given the current state of our market?
Sure. Yeah, when I mentioned the great upgrade, we've heard the phrase over the last couple of years, the great resignation. And I think when people hear that, they think people are just sitting on the sidelines, not willing to re-engage in the economy. It's primarily impacting middle income to higher income white collar workers who are now resigning their positions and either not re-engaging the economy or being very cautious about what they're going to do for their next career opportunity. What we're seeing in the information from here in Michigan and across the country is it's really should be the great upgrade is what it probably should be called, because that dynamic is more heavily impacting lower wage workers who may be looking for the next opportunity, and they may be leaving for a job that pays 50 cents an hour more or $1 hour or more down the street. Or they're looking for opportunities to re-engage in the economy in a different occupation, in a different industry entirely. We've seen individuals that are leaving certain industries here in Michigan and across the U.S., and they're pursuing industries or occupations that are more in demand, that lead to higher wage, higher skilled positions. And so what we're doing right now in coordination with our Michigan Works agencies and our private sector audience throughout the state of Michigan is we're encouraging companies to look at ways that they can help either retain and or attract new employees into their company. And some of the ways that they can do that is by enhancing the corporate culture within their company, not just focusing on increasing wages. We have seen wages increase quite a bit through the course of the pandemic, especially in certain industries like the hospitality industry. But there's only so much that a private sector company can do to increase wages before that really starts to eat into their bottom line. But there are many other things that they can do in order to help enhance that corporate culture. Part of it, we've talked a little today about upskilling and training. Individuals and workers are looking for companies that are interested in not just having them come in and do the job 9 to 5, but they want a company that's going to make that recurring investment in their professional development. So upskilling and training is a great way for companies to show that return on investment for the individual workers that they have at their company. We're also seeing that cross training and job shadowing into different departments or different areas of a company can also help lead to long-term retention of employees, especially if you have a company who's starting at maybe the ground level on the production floor, but they want to move into a management position. Are there things that the company can be doing in the near term to help individuals get into some type of management track, whether that's in-house training or taking some courses at the local community college that are geared toward what the individual wants to do long-term? So the better long-term outlook that companies have in investing in their employees, we're seeing those companies are having better retention and attraction rates compared to their counterparts who may not be investing as much in those upskilling opportunities for their employees.
We're joined by Ryan Hundt, the Chief Executive Officer of Michigan Works Association, joining us on the Michigan Megacast. More information at michiganworks.org. That's michiganworks.org. How does inflation play into the job market at this time? For employers, I would imagine that means a lot higher costs, which means a lot less cash flow, lower revenue, less money to spend, particularly on employment, which then for employees looking to seek these jobs, they may have better opportunities. They may have opportunities for better pay in a similar position that's maybe a little bit lower in a company somewhere else than with certain companies. So just overall, what role has inflation played in this, and how long do you project, or does Michigan Works project, this could have an impact on employers and therefore on potential employees?
Man, that is a great question. I do not pretend to be an economist, and I did not sleep at a Holiday Inn last night, but I'll do my best to answer those questions for you, at least what we're seeing right now and kind of what we're hearing from some of our subject matter experts on the topic of inflation. Consumer demand has not slowed down. So even though we're seeing inflation and the rising cost of goods and services across the board, not only for individual families to afford the basic necessities, but also for cost of goods and services for businesses to be able to do their jobs and for workers to be able to do their jobs. That consumer demand is helping to kind of offset some of the inflationary dynamics that you may typically see ahead of perhaps a slight or deep recession in a state or national economy. But because of that consumer demand, companies are still hiring. We're not seeing really any slowdown in the job market right now. We're still having a number of companies in a range of industries that are continuously hiring, looking for that next best and brightest talent. And for workers as well, that inflation has led to an increase in wages, which you would think is oftentimes a good thing for wages to be able to increase. The problem that we're running into now that we're seeing here in the US and across the globe is inflation is actually rising faster than wage increases are. But now we're also running into the dynamic where companies who have been raising their wages for the last couple of years cannot afford to raise their wages much more without cutting into that bottom line. So what the future holds for us here in Michigan and across the national economy, I think is yet to be seen. Because of that consumer demand, I think we'll see that inflation will continue, maybe not at the level of 8.5% like we saw in March. I know some economists are projecting that the inflation will start to perhaps dip a little bit, which will provide hopefully some relief for the cost of basic goods and necessities for individuals and their families. The other dynamic we have to think about as well, we had a recession back in 2007, 2008, 2009. Michigan was one of the states that was hit hardest across the entire nation when it came to the Great Recession a little over a decade ago. I think the difference in dynamics this time around is the job shortages that companies are running into, where they have a shortage of workers, but they have a number of different job openings. And we've seen over the course of the pandemic quite a few, millions of people that have retired and maybe expedited their retirement because of the pandemic. And we're not expecting those individuals to re-engage in the economy. So even if we do see a slight slowdown in the hiring of employees, maybe it's just simply that companies won't hire as many people as they would have necessarily projected due to any particular slowdown. That also may just be the optimist in me, but I'm hopeful that, as a nation and as a state, we can weather any storm that is coming due because of the inflationary dynamic. But at the end of the day, we're here to support the job seekers in order to upskill themselves to better support their individual lives and their families. We're also here to support the businesses who are looking to hire those individuals as well, whether, regardless of the inflation rate right now. But I know that we're tracking that very carefully, and I know that it will have significant impact probably in the medium term, I would say, here in Michigan. Not necessarily any short-term fixes, and I'm scared to make any long-term projections, but I would say inflation is certainly here to serve as a dynamic impacting labor force participation here in Michigan and nationally, probably, at least for the next several months, if not longer.
Ryan, anything else that we should be keeping in mind right now in terms of Michigan Works' opportunity to help employers and employees alike?
Sure. Again, I mentioned this at the very beginning of the interview today. Workforce development is a critical component to ensuring that Michigan remains on the track toward long-term economic resiliency. We're starting to get into budget discussions here in Michigan for fiscal year 23, also talking with federal lawmakers about appropriations for the upcoming fiscal year as it relates to workforce development. Again, we encourage both job seekers and companies to communicate and contact their local Michigan Works office. There are a number of different resources and opportunities to help offset the cost of training, perhaps even eliminate or lower some barriers that individuals may be running into when it comes to sustained employability. One program that we've had a huge amount of success over the past 6 or 7 years here in Michigan is the Going Pro Talent Fund, formerly known as the Skilled Trades Training Fund. That program last year in fiscal year 22 was funded at $40 million throughout the state of Michigan. That program helps companies offset the cost of training. They can receive a reimbursement of up to $1,500 per eligible trainee or up to $3,000 per new apprentice at their company. And we expect to continue supporting that program in fiscal year 23 and beyond, thanks to the support. It's actually really a bipartisan support, not only from the governor's office, but on both sides of the aisle in the state house and the state senate. And so for companies, again, that's just another resource that they can utilize to help upskill their employees and really help enrich the corporate culture at their company to reinvest in their workers.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
The website is michiganworks.org. That's michiganworks.org. We're going to take a break here on the Michigan Megacast. On the other side, we'll be joined by one of nearly 300 charities and nonprofits supported by the Shared Detroit platform. We will talk to Brittany Kellum, the executive director of Just Speak Incorporated. Coming up next on the Megacast.
To Sofia and Gabriel, even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
72.7% of high school students get less than the recommended 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. This can cause pain, obesity, and can very negatively affect your mental health. When you have a consistent 7 to 9 hours of sleep every day, you get sick less often, lose more weight, and have better relationships with those around you. For more information about the dangers of sleep deprivation, go to sleepfoundation.org. This message is brought to you by the WBHS Digital Media Arts Program and 89.3 Lakes FM.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
It's the Great Lakes water. And so what people do ends up in our waterways.
Flushable wipes are just evil. They should be thrown away. They're impossible to destroy, and they can cause significant problems.
One of the main things when you're cooking is to not dump fats, oils, and greases down your drains.
They stick to the sides of pipes, they stick to everything they come in contact with. Don't put it down the sink.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
We may come from different organizations,
but we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Neighborhood storm drains carry water directly to local creeks and streams. No filters, no treatment.
Storm drains also help reduce street flooding when it rains.
So clearing storm drains and the areas nearby of trash and leaves helps keep them for rain only.
It is easy to do your part by adopting a storm drain.
Find a storm drain, check it, and clear it every month.
So keep storm drains for rain only.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM.
We as Michiganders feel connected to this resource in a way that I think is really powerful.
Conservation starts with a caring, committed community.
For me, it's peaceful to have a relationship with the river.
Every single one of us has a role to make sure that those waterways stay safe and healthy, being careful about what goes down the storm drain.
Just even eliminating some of your single-use plastic makes a difference.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Did you know that nearly 3.31 million Americans don't get their annual checkup? Going to the doctor regularly is extremely important and is a crucial factor in maintaining good health. Make sure you are visiting your local doctor often and telling them about any health concerns you have. For more information, contact your local healthcare provider. This message is brought to you by WBHS Digital Media Arts Program and 89.3 Lakes FM.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, Let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at ivaccinate.org.
We may come from different organizations,
but we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Most of the pollution that goes into our rivers is carried by rainwater that flows off of roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
The leaves and bark of a single tree can retain a surprising amount of rainwater. Depending on its size and species, it could be 100 gallons or more.
It is estimated that an urban forest can reduce annual runoff by up to 7%.
Here's one thing that we know can help keep our water clean.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM. Welcome back to the Michigan Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith. Big thank you for everyone that joined on our show today. Dr. Russell Faust from the Oakland County Health Division, Jason Charnas from JVS Human Services and Kadima, as well as Dewey Steffen from Great Lakes Wealth and Ryan Hundt from Michigan Works. So you can find all these interviews on demand on our website, as well as our full episode from today's edition of the Megacast sometime mid to late afternoon at civiccentertv.com/megacast. There you'll also learn more information about each one of our partnering TV, radio, and web outlets that join us all throughout Oakland County on the Oakland County Megacast, and all throughout the state of Michigan for the Michigan Megacast outlets such as My Michigan TV, otherwise known as My, which will have a lot of special programming beginning today and running through Thursday, live from the Grand Traverse Resort and Spa in Acme, Michigan, where they will be there for the Pure Michigan Governors Conference of 2022. We'll have Steve Lado out there. We'll have the King of Television, Larry Nyland, out there interviewing a bunch of different people, a bunch of different figureheads and decision makers in travel and tourism here in Michigan. You'll see how that's going to impact the tourism season this coming summer, this coming fall, this coming spring, of course, and into the future as we look to what Michigan travel means in 2023 and well beyond. All that's going to happen on mymytv.com. That's mymitv.com, or on the free My Michigan TV apps, which you can download for your smartphone and your smart TV. Again, learn more information about everywhere you can download the MyMyTV app for free at mymytv.com, or just go to civiccentertv.com/coronavirus/megacast, where we'll have a link to My Michigan TV, otherwise known as My, as well as all of our other partnering TV, radio, and web outlets, so you can learn more about all their other original programming in the 22 hours of the day that they're not live with us, or live to tape with us in the case of ONTV for the Megacast. Also, highly encourage you, as I teased earlier, to go to our coronavirus page. civiccentertv.com/coronavirus is the right link for that. We'll have information right at the top of the page that will link you to the CDC, the MDHHS, and the Oakland County Health Division, so that you can stay up to date on everything that you need to know about COVID-19, including the spread of the virus. Even though we're in a low spread time right now, it may change, may not change. You'll want to keep up to date on that regardless. Learn more information as well about precautionary tactics that you may need to employ in your community or in communities that you visit, different areas of the country and different areas of the world. And of course, stay up to date on vaccinations and booster shots and where you can receive them if you so need to do so. We also will have our articles that made headlines today across the state of Michigan on that website sometime this afternoon. I'll get to work on that right away after today's edition of the Megacast. civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Big thank you to our crew that makes this possible each and every day. Our technical director, Calvin Brown, with me here in our studios at Green Media Center for the full 2-hour marathon that is the Oakland County and Michigan Megacasts. Jared Clark, our Zoom producer, out at the office of My Michigan TV in the bustling metropolis of Troy, Michigan, helping all our guests join and navigating any technical difficulties that may amount. The King of Television, Larry Nyland in Acme, Michigan, for booking our show each and every day and getting both the guests and us ready for informed conversations on a number of topics. And Maddie Mustian out at Master Control, helping us on and off the air each and every day. On My Michigan TV, a special programming live from Traverse City is next. We'll return tomorrow at 10 a.m.